Welcome back to Introduction to Business. In this episode, what I want to do is do a little recap of international trade and then get into a little bit of the legal framework of business. Recall that we talked about international trade. A country might set up tariffs in order to protect its industries. Well, other countries will then retaliate, and we end up resulting in trade wars or tariff wars. And we have treaties. There's the U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement to have free trade in North America. There's the Central America Free Trade Agreement, the European Union. Countries recognize that these things are good for business and for their own countries, and so therefore they'll set up treaties. We also talked about how businesses are smart and can work around government actions. So if somebody sets up a tariff, there are ways to get around things. A great example of a business finding a creative solution was Ford. The U.S. government put a tariff on imports of commercial vans. Turns out commercial vans were being made in Turkey and imported into the United States. And the auto workers didn't like that. They thought those were jobs that should be done in the United States. So the government, trying to protect the workers and trying to get votes, put a tariff on imported commercial vans. So now business people, there's a problem, so there's got to be a creative solution. Well, some brilliant person looked at this and said, well, how do you know what a commercial van is? Well, a commercial van is one that's, painters use and carpenters and construction people. Well, how does that differ from a passenger van? Well, it differs in that it doesn't have seats. It doesn't have windows in the back. So what Ford did was they made the vans in Turkey, but they put windows and seats in them. They came into the United States. Oh, it's not a commercial van, it's a passenger van. Got into the United States, didn't pay tariffs, took out the seats, took out the windows. We took out the windows, and shipped the windows and the seats back to Turkey, and voila, they had a commercial van. So the government made no money. There was nothing made here in the United States. It was just more of a headache for Ford, but it's still cheaper. So it just points out how businesses are very smart around getting around things like tariffs. Counter trade, for example, that was where a country would not let you exchange their currency or put restrictions on how much. Well, IBM found another way to get around that. They bought teak wood in Russia, shipped the teak wood out, very expensive wood, and sold it in the United States. Call that counter trade. And we also talked about on international trade how there's the World Bank that helps you build infrastructures, power dams, airports, bridges, things like that. And the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, that will help you in terms of the government overall financially. Let's turn, though, to the legal aspects of business. As you may have realized, that one of the most important things you can do relative to capitalism is have competition. Well, the government has enacted laws, and you probably could tell I'm not a big fan of government intervention, but the government helping to promote competition is a good thing. So there's a category of laws called antitrust laws. Antitrust laws are designed to promote competition. It says monopolies are illegal. It says you cannot discriminate on pricing. I cannot give somebody more favorable pricing than someone else. I can't collude. I can't go together and say, hey, let's work together and raise our prices. Or let's agree that we're not going to compete. All those are illegal under antitrust laws. But government is all over the place in business. I have here a list of some of the different government organizations, the Federal Trade Commission, the FCC. FCC regulates radios and TV, and they've been trying to think about getting into the internet. The Food and Drug Administration, they have to approve medicines. You have a new drug comes out, a cure for the coronavirus. Well, do we approve it or don't we approve it? Is it safe? Does it do what it's supposed to do? Securities and Exchange Commission, they regulate the financial industry, the selling of stocks and bonds and stock markets and things like that. But regulation goes all over the place. We have OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They regulate safety at work. They describe and prescribe for businesses how big steps have to be, how tall they are, how wide steps are. There's regulations about the height of the bumpers on cars. There's regulations about wiring in the walls. Now the color of the wires is regulated. All these things, railing sizes, and all those sorts of things are regulated by the government. There's no laws. The law is that the Food and Drug Administration is supposed to monitor the safety of the food. They then prescribe regulations. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about the law. Liability is a term that we should start with, and we'll talk more about it. Liability is the responsibility that a business has for its actions. If a product causes somebody to get harmed or causes damage to their property, the business is liable. They're responsible for their actions. We'll talk about later about how you can protect yourself against liability, at least to a degree. Another important aspect of business law is intellectual property protection. Intellectual property is property that's not physical, but is nevertheless valuable. Patents, for example. If you have an invention, the government will grant you a patent. A patent is kind of cool. It gives the business basically a legal monopoly to use that patent for a period of time. Once the patent runs out, anybody can use it. You'll see it get used a lot, for example, in medicines. And when the patent runs out, you get what's called generic drugs. Everybody makes that drug. Velcro was once a patent. Where was my head? NutraSweet and the aspartame was a patent. And when it runs out, anybody can use it. First NutraSweet had it, now anybody can use it. Copyrights. Copyrights protect artwork, printed work, music, those sorts of things. So Beyonce's music is copyrighted. She owns it. Trademarks. The Nike trademark. Nike swoosh, Adidas 3 stripes. The Mercedes logo are all trademarks and protected. But we also have trade secrets. Trade secrets are kind of interesting. They're actually a legal protection. You have to keep your intellectual property. If you're going to keep it a trade secret, you have to protect it. Coke, for example, is famous for having its trade secret formula locked up in a vault. Well, why not patent it? Well, they don't patent it or copyright it because eventually that would run out and anybody could make Coke. So they keep it a trade secret. The KFC recipe for fried chicken is a trade secret. But you can have other trade secrets. Your trade secret can be how you manufacture something, the salaries you pay your employees. All those can be trade secrets, but they have to be kept private. You have to protect them. If somebody can take your Coke, and people do, take your Coke, take it to a chemistry lab and figure out what's in it, they can use it. What they can't do is steal it. If you steal somebody's trade secret, there are very, very severe penalties. Among the penalties are you lose 3 times the revenue that the other company got. You lose that you stole. You lose any product that any manufacturing facilities that built whatever you stole go to the company. You lose anything that distributed, any trucks, anything that might have carried the product that you stole. So it's really very, very serious. All right, so these are ways that businesses protect their intellectual property. This is just a brief overview of some of the things and ways businesses are impacted by laws and regulations.